Hello, everyone, and welcome to the talk, Mastering the Mobile Testing Pyramid. So a little bit about me. So I'm Laurent, co-founder and CTO at Waldo. Before that, I've been mostly working on backend stuff for the rest of my career. And we started Waldo 4.5 years ago to help solve mobile end-to-end testing. So in a nutshell, Waldo is a solution to create, maintain, and orchestrate all your mobile end-to-end testing directly from your browser. Let's go in the talk. So mobile testing. So I think we are all agreeing that mobile testing is super important. And it might be even more than for web because reverts or hotfixes are actually expensive. On web, you have any kind of problem, usually you can deploy in a matter of seconds or minutes. On mobile, it's going to be much harder. You are basically blocked by the release cycle, and even a hotfix might take hours or days to get out. So when we talk about mobile testing, there are several layers. I'm getting to it right after. In this case, I'm mostly going to be interested in what a user sees ultimately. So really what you want with mobile testing is a gatekeeper that whenever your users are going to be able to use your app later, they're going to be able to see the features behave the way they were intended to. And so historically, when you want to do that kind of testing, meaning trying to be in the user's eyes, you usually do manual testing or you're going to do scripting. And for both of them, if you ask people that do that, it usually comes with a lot of bad experience. So unreliable, not scalable is going to come a lot, especially for manual testing. And then for scripting, you're going to get things like it's brittle, it's flaky. And so you end up investing a lot of time and effort trying to script. And at the end of the day, what you end up having is things that actually bring you noisy results, and you don't really know exactly what to take out of them. So you probably noticed I was talking a little bit about the pyramid just before. So the pyramid is super important. I'm going to focus really on the top layer, end-to-end testing and manual testing. Again, trying to see what a user will see. But just briefly, I'm sure you're all aware of that, but just to say, so unit testing at the bottom is very cheap. It usually computes very fast. And what you do there is basically being at the component layer. So you want to see what it happens if you have a login form, and then how is that going to display if you have, I don't know, some inconsistent state. You can do it very easily there. You throw a lot of states there, and then you see how it renders. So that's unit testing, basically trying to isolate a component and see how it reacts outside of the rest of the world. Integration testing, the easiest to demonstrate integration testing is usually with backend services. So a backend service is something that you can talk to via endpoints, and integration testing is testing a block of your system in isolation from the others, but still without trying to go inside the box. So it's you have, again, a service, you throw some inputs, you look at the outputs, and you don't really care how that's implemented on the inside. What you care is that the service itself is maintaining and respecting its interface. And so what we are interested is a last layer, end-to-end testing, which is testing the system as a whole. So you want to be as close to what a user will see whenever they play with the app later. And in order to do that, you don't want to be isolating. So you want your app to be functioning normally. You want it to function against your servers. You want to actually see the communication and the network happening. And you really want to do something that's very close. Again, what that's going to give you is a confidence that it actually, all in all, it actually behaves the way it should. So after 4 years of experience talking with teams and also just like us trying to analyze the problem, we've came up with at least 2 conclusions that I want to share today. The first one is more of a reminder mobile testing is actually very hard, and it should be considered an engineering problem with the exact same mindset that you have for other engineering problems. So from experience, it looks like it's kind of put on the side, and it's that kind of hybrid object that people are, yeah, it doesn't really matter, or if we don't have to do that. There are certain things and mindset that you would take if you're looking at I don't know, scaling a database or doing something like that. You should basically try to have the same mindset when you're looking at mobile testing. So it's more of like a conceptual mindset. The second one, and I think this is the most important one, and this is the one I really want to focus today on, is that you have to separate concerns. So you have two problems when you're trying to do automation. You have to separate how to make sure that your app is automatable from how do you actually automate it. And this is, to me, the biggest point of failure of most of the scripting strategies that end up, delivering bad results, noisy results, and stuff like that. It usually comes from the fact that these two problems were not separated. And so this is what we come up with basically as a recipe for good automation testing if you want to get end-to-end testing for speed and quality for your app. This is an ordered list. So really, you want to take these one after the other. The first one, as I was saying, you want to automate your app. And this is super important. And this is a part that most people don't even think about when they're looking at automation. And this is what's going to cause most of the problems. The second part is you need to decide how you're going to do the automation. And there are a few solutions out there, Waldo being one. So I'm not trying to say you should use Waldo necessarily, just trying to say these are the principles that are important when you're looking at the automation. And the third one is you need to build your proper strategy. So automate your app. Clearly, this seems like it's obvious, but this is the most important part. So when you're going to do automation, you want to be able to programmatically take control of your app and do certain actions on it. So for that, you need to know how your app behaves. And so there are two things, really, like when you think about it, you should be able, before even opening your app, to know what exactly is going to happen when you open the launch button. And same for the rest. So you need to be able to tell what is the behavior that's going to happen. One of the biggest enemy of that is A/B testing. So any app that you try to test that's actually doing A/B testing is going to give you different behaviors based on arbitrary conditionals. And so you don't control that. So you're now ending up having to automate something that behaves a way that you actually can't even predict. The second one is you really want to have ways and shortcuts to try the different modes of your app. So what you think about testing, really what you want to do is, how can I make sure that when my users are using all the features that we have built and embedded in this binary, all of these features are going to behave properly and according to the specs. And so when you want to test, you really want to be able to get in these different modes, to be able to execute all the different features in a way that's not too complicated. So one of the maybe most significant example, imagine you want to test an app that has a specific behavior when a user has not logged in for 3 months. It's going to be extremely hard to do unless you do some tweaks somewhere. Because if you have an account that you can use for that, the first time you're going to use it, it's not inactive anymore. So the next time you're not going to be able to use that same one. Another example is, imagine you have a news app and you have breaking news features. How do you make sure that when a breaking news feature happens, your app is going to do the right behavior? And then when it's a normal day, there's no crazy news happening, it also has a good behavior. So when we talk about automate your app, we're really talking about how can you make it so that you control how to put your app in such and such mode so that you can test all the different features that you have without having to wait or hope for the context to be right and actually get you to see the feature. And that's one of the things too. When you think about it, when you have a mobile app team, what gets tested the most is power user features, because every person on the team is usually a power user of the app. So all these things they're gonna know night and day how to get there. But then that's how you forget about all the different features. So again, you really want to be able to basically impersonate all the persona that are gonna be able to use your app, and to be able to get to all the different modes that your app has to offer. Why is that the first step, in my opinion? Actually, if you do that right, you can even do that outside of the automation part that comes after. Even by doing that, you're going to make all your manual tester much happier, because now if they want to test such and such, they also can with direct ways, because you have built them. And so how? The how is usually pretty simple. If you think about things like A/B testing, usually you're going to say, okay, I'm building for testing. Let me just turn off all the A/B testing. And for things a little bit more advanced, one of the most common cases is usually to have a debug menu. So you build an app pre-prod, and then if you shake, you're going to get a drawer with a bunch of options, and then that's going to allow you to do, I don't know, import a fixture or change my user to be such and such. And in that way, you invest a little bit at the beginning, you get that right, and then you're basically going to offer the ability to test the depth of your app pretty easily. So again, first step, automate your app. If you do that, you actually also immediately get benefit directly from just manual testing. The second one now becomes automate your tests. So you have an app that behaves in a controlled way, and you know how to get to the different places. Why not automate it? So when you are looking at automation frameworks and automation engines or automation solutions, whatever you want to call them, I think the two very important parts are that you want to be testing what the user sees. So you should never have an automation that relies on implementation details of your app. Things change constantly. Developers come, they do a refactor, they rename an accessibility ID with another name. That accessibility ID is used by something else. They, shift things around. If ever you have an automation engine that's basically relying on that, you know that you're in trouble. You're going to be in the constant pain of having to maintain and not knowing why your ride is coming. And also, it's also just a mindset. You want to be at the layer of the user, because it's not. Also, if you do that and you check, for instance, that such element shows, what does that even mean? You really want to have something that's as close to what the user will see. You want the proxy to be the more reliable to the experience that your user will get when they get your app in prod. And the second one, it's kind of the same idea. You want to have loosely coupled test and development. So as I was saying, if a developer comes and now starts to do a refactor, he should never have to worry about how that's going to affect the test. If the user would not see a difference, the automation framework should not see a difference. However, it still needs to be coupled in a way, because now when a developer, is making changes to the app, they change the behavior. So they're going to make a branch, they're going to work on the new behavior in there. So they're going to, for instance, change the way signup works. So at some point, you're going to have to know that your test scenario and how it was implemented knows that it should expect something different now. So you basically want a one-way direction where tests are aware of where you are in the development cycle. Are you in a branch? Are you on the main branch? But doesn't depend on what's inside, doesn't depend on the implementation details again. And that's how you know you've made it. So we've developed that. This is something that we use constantly at Waldo. The three pillars of a successful automation, it has to be repeatable. So you have an automation scenario to sign up. You should be able to replay it and it should yield to the same results. One of the most common cases of non-repeatable, if again for this sign-up example, imagine you are using test steps that are doing a sign-up with a static email. You're going against your real servers, and then so the first time you play it, everything is fine, and then the second time you're trying to play it, it's going to tell you the email is already taken. This is an example of a non-repeatable test. So you want your test to be able to run over and over and still work. Deterministic is a little bit more after that notion. So deterministic is really about you want your app to behave consistently over time. And this is exactly where the automate your app is so important. Again, the biggest enemy of deterministic is A/B testing. If when you open your app, you get either A or B, how can you know for sure how your app is going to behave, and how can you automate on top of that? And the third one is isolated. This is a bit more advanced, and isolated is what's really going to allow you to power efficient end-to-end testing. So isolated is a core principle where you should be able to run any two tests you have on your test suite at the same time, and they should not impact each other. They should not conflict with each other. So if you have, for instance, tests that are using a login, doing some actions on it, and you're running the same test at the same time, it's probably going to conflict with each other. So the action of the first one are going to show on the second one, which doesn't know what's going on, and so on and so forth. So this is what's going to allow you to scale. The first two are really what's going to allow you to trust. If you have the first two, you can trust your results. If you have the third one, you can now run everything in concurrency, and then you don't have to worry, and you can very much scale your execution time and get some fast results. So once you've done automate your app, automate your test, now you also want to be able to build a proper strategy. And so what does that mean? I started with the pyramid, and this talk is about the pyramid. So I'm only talking about end-to-end testing, but that's not covering the full pyramid. The pyramid is really here for the reason. So you want to decide what is the right place to test what kind of behavior. End-to-end testing is what's the closer to a user will see. So it's super powerful. It's going to give you the most confidence, but it's also come with a cost. Because again, you're testing the full system, so it's going to take longer. You need to make sure everything is behaving properly together. So when you want to have, for instance, verifying that you're managing all the error state possible that happens when you're inputting a credit card, this is not something you should do in end-to-end testing. End-to-end testing is not meant to be comprehensive. It's not here for the edge cases. It's really here because you want to know on the optimistic level, when a user gets your app, are they going to be able to use it the way it's intended to be used? For the rest, you have the other layers of the pyramid. And for things that are very nifty or very complex, you also have manual testing. Manual testing is here to stay. It's very important for some of the cases. You have a problem, your changelog of your app says that you fixed such and such component, and now probably you want someone to actually play with that and try to break it and see if no edge cases was forgotten. And then, until you touch it again, you don't have really to worry about it. So this should not be end-to-end testing, but these are where manual testing comes very handy to complete the picture. And so really, end-to-end testing should be you test the essence of your app. What are your business drivers? If you have an e-commerce app, clearly you want to check to verify your checkout flow. Your business driver is people are able to buy. You should verify that people are able to buy as close to what the user will see and as close to what they will be able to do. And this is clearly what end-to-end testing is meant for, not for the other two. So another thing that's also super important and this is now talking about the efficiency again. You want to be able to test the right things at the right time. And so in your software development life cycle, you have several stages. You're working on a branch. Here, what do you care about? Not introducing a stupid crash and not breaking core functionality, because once you merge to main, then everybody is impacted by that. But you don't really care for more. So what you want here is speed, and you want to test very few things, but that has to come back as quickly as possible. On the other end of the spectrum, you have your beta release. So maybe that's once every 2 weeks, once a week, it depends for teams. At that time, you're ready to go live. You really want to test as much as possible. So when you're looking at an automation solution, you want something that allows you to basically keep the granularity and orchestrate properly. This thing, you don't want like a one suite of tests that runs or doesn't run. You want to be able to say, given the nature of what I'm testing, for instance, a build that's from a branch, I should be testing that. It's a beta, I should be testing that. And by having that, this is how you really can scale, because now you're testing the right things at the right time. And that's the same. How do you know you made it? It's basically restating what I said just before. You know how you made it if you're able to actually test on PRs and get results in minutes. In that case, you know that you've actually got some really good automation in place. And you should be able to have the rest. So basically, you should be able, again, to test separately at the separate levels of the sales development lifecycle. Software. And yeah, so this gets to the end of this talk. So, what we see is that you need to look at the problem really from an engineering perspective. Engineers are really good at abstracting away problems, thinking about idempotent, which is very close to deterministic. That's the first thing. So really, you need to think, okay, this is the way I should approach a problem. And then it's better to break down the problem in order. If you start to do automation by just trying to put some scripts around action that you usually do manually, you're probably going to fail. It's going to come back, and then you're going to, again, what we said on the first slides, you're going to get some flaky results, brittle, you never know what to trust. And it's basically trying to put the effort too far before thinking of the problem first. The problem is, if your app is not automatable, there's no way you're going to be able to automate it, no matter what solution you use. And if you do that, then, like this is a good a breakdown of all the good benefits you get from that. But clearly, having good end-to-end testing in place is going to allow you to have shorter release cycles. You're going to have much more confidence. You're going to avoid wasting a lot of time manually testing at every stage, because now you trust your system and you know that there is a gatekeeper, so things are not going to go in the wild without you knowing that there was a problem. Fewer bugs in production, and then you're just going to increase largely your customer satisfaction. So this is it. Thank you very much.